Okay, here I am back at the Beethoven C minor violin and piano, or piano and violin sonata. The last movement. Yesterday evening we had a rehearsal and upped the tempo ante quite a bit, so I want to make sure that I'm getting more comfortable with all the figuration. I'm going to start at the top. I like my new fingering here. I like the editor's fingering the fifth finger. The decrescendo should be more convincing. I just decided yesterday on a new fingering here, but I haven't yet invoked it yet. It's really nice, the doubled thumb. There should be no desperation here. You notice? If I stare at the two, it's harder, always, interestingly, than staring at the bottom part of my hand, where my thumb would be. Because there's a balance to it. Here's where we discovered particularly that the tempo was dragging fiercely at 39. You don't want a figuration like that that's not cheerfully in two. This passage is, if I did it very slowly, it would never be an issue, but because it's full of jumps and placements, I need to know better than I know now where I am. First of all, on B flat. To say I don't remember practicing that simple little chick left hand alone. That E flat major sound like a shock. The other issue though is that the right hand is bopping around, so I can't concentrate on my left hand to that extent. But having experienced those chords, more directly, it's possible that their identity, my relationship to them, will be firmer. Let's see. So, here. got the gesture, so obviously I'm trusting it more. Now, I may want to spot check with my eyes occasionally to make sure my left hand is properly positioned, but more likely, so I feel so much better that I've taken care of what would seem to be the subordinate hand, but it's the hand that really controls the well-being and the accuracy. That's the left hand. So I can then put extra attention on my right hand's jumping around. And then you notice that my guard is let down. I had accomplished what I wanted to very successfully. So the last thing I can afford to do is then say, now take stock of what to do next. I have to already have integrated this next passage. All of those fancy little fingering shenanigans, for example. I've worked out what I consider a nice fingering for me. And it's a diminuendo or decrescendo. So I have to trust it. I must say, I prefer 4-1-2 to 4-2-1 at the end. Gives me a nice lift on the E flat. And what I'm doing here is refining the gesture to the extent where it absolutely makes minimal demands on, said another way, maybe optimal and most graceful demand, most efficient, so it feels the most pleasurable. That wasn't it. There is a sforzando that I'm not actually building into my choreography yet. So that will be actually helpful to reorient at the sforzando. Down. Position my left hand. That was the one mistake I made. Really, in terms of knowing something, it's not just a question of knowing it generically or somehow knowing it without consciousness. It's knowing what aspects of your knowledge need to be conscious and what aspects need to be trusted. For example, this chord in the left hand, when I stare at it, I can always place my hand there. It's silly to know I now have a feel for it, a sense of it, an identity for it. So even in the throes of, in the heat of battle, it's going to behave more. Chosen to change my fingering. It's much harder to get to 2-3 from 2-3. From F A flat, B flat, and then D F. Going down to 3 is much harder, but it sets up my hand better. I think that the editor wisely suggests that 2-4. It's easier to get to. Alternative would be to go to 5-3 twice. This is a sneaky little passage. my third fingering here. First was the editor's fingering, then my alternate fingering, and now finally the 5-3. So the 5-3 is definitely the easiest one to get to initially, and what I had to determine was getting off it, pivoting on the B flat, would it make it possible to get down yet one more third, especially one that moves the hand back into the keyboard. The answer is yes, so. This piano is making me fight a bit. Back to 3, 3, 1, 2. I really need to know this left hand well because my right hand is jumping around. It's the hand that sort of seems to act quietly. It's nicely supportive, that needs to be taken care of, because unless you can take it for granted completely, it's not going to be supportive when you have to distract yourself with something that's much more primary to your attention, as in this case, leaps, and quick leaps. Whoops. About a passage like that, if it's right on the edge of what you consider either your ability or your knowledge of it, there's that skittishness that says, I hope I survive. There's a point at which, when you finally know something well, where there's such an ease, there's such a friendliness, a rapport, that you start to feel that the physical demands and the intention demands, they're all there, but in a fashion that makes you feel, well, that's obvious, so I'm not yet there. But there's a casualness that's getting built in. And how is it coming about? Well, because of the process I've used. Admittedly, it's not been an optimal process because I haven't really reinforced my work on a recurrent basis. It's been interrupted by vacation time, for example, and by other material, solo recital. But it's reaching the point finally where one session is feeding the next one, is laying the groundwork. So I can, even the rehearsal yesterday puts into perspective how this needs to be, what kind of ease I need to feel. And of course, as I like to tell my students, very often when they're uncertain about whether something will work, but I'm certain that it will work, that the solution we're working on is an optimal way of approaching it, I can lend my confidence to them. In other words, I know that it's going to work, so we work through it. Very often when you're not sure and you practice, not with the expectation that this will give you the results you're looking for, but just with a hopefulness that it might give you the results you're looking for, that's a completely different mindset. So in this case, I already know that it's going to work. There are certain awkward things that I know for me are always going to be physically awkward. Not hard, awkward. But something like this may start off being challenging, but I know that it's inherently going to be reasonable to play. And once I have a spirit, certainly adjusting the tempo yesterday means that I have to be that much more secure and aware and comfortable and at ease. But that's a good thing, because I want this friendliness. I can practically play it nonchalantly in what I call a demonstration of cocktail pianist attitude, where you can play the piano and talk about someone's life history at the same time. So I'm talking to you quite a bit as I play. Now, there was a little bit of time where I needed the extra attention, and I didn't. So I think it's useful to me, at least for now. Well, it's useful. I need to know where to look. Those are my groups. How do I make them smooth? This position is followed by this that's further in, and this is further in yet again. I also need a certain inclination of the hand to make this transition work well. So ultimately, I don't have time to think of those things. I think of them now while I do have time, and I build them in. I need to know that B flat resolves to E flat. Excuse me. Where I needed my visual involvement. I didn't have to think about it, I just knew where I wasn't sure that my hand placement would be good without my visual involvement. Crescendo. The subito forte happens on the second quarter, so. I've worked out a fingering previously. 1, 4, 1, that my system was not prepared for. Not that I don't know that that's going to happen. It's simply that I haven't built in the tools for making that approach work. For example, the fingering values, probably 2-3 in the left hand on this oscillation. The second time I've written in 1-3. Simple octaves at the end. I need a different fingering. Well, this is awkward. I'm pretty good at broken thirds. It just happens that this particular key doesn't feel optimal for right here. So optimal in life is one thing, optimal for the situation is another thing. Very often the passage isn't the most pleasant or pianistic or comfortable, but you make it the best possible version of that you can. Sort of Voltaire-like, looking for the best of all possible solutions. Assuming it's there. So it's got 4-2-3-1-4-2-3, which is not bad. It requires for my hand considerable dipsy-doodling. I have to come out here to stay comfortable. I can't cut across. Or what I just did unconsciously, maybe serendipitously, is 2-1-4-1 and then 4-2-3-1-2-1. Let's see. Well, right off the bat, I can play it more easily, so that's a good sign. So that's 2-1, 4-1, 4-2, 3-1, 2, shifting to 3. So basically, the first 3 notes then are in a one-hand position. My thumb is used as the, you can call it what you want, the domino piece, the airlock, the transforming finger that gets you into the next hand position. So it's and then I shift to third octave. Okay, so it is so much nicer. Again, maybe not for you, but for me it is. And there's that subito, fortissimo, excuse me, sforzato, sforzando. It's always a subito. Doesn't have to be. Well, at this speed, even 5 notes, the next note down is a little hard for me. So to ensure that there's a lightness, I've indicated start on the F flat auxiliary note and just play 4 notes. Oh yes, there's that fancy. really don't want it to be a mental thing where I just say, jab that key, but rather a physically predetermined thing, just as I don't want to have to think of a fingering in a scale. So, a downward gesture, a drop. In fact, I may just say that to myself, with a narrow. Same principle in the right hand here. I couldn't read my own too, so that's no advantage. Coming close. Very good. Flat. E flat. E flat down here. That diminished chord. Oh. If they're all forte. Yes, they are. Again, a tilt of the hand sometimes makes all the difference. When I'm here, if I'm inclined in this direction, I have to make a rather huge gesture. If I'm basically pushing my hand into the keyboard to the A flat, there's a seamlessness to the way it gets there. And then I have to reverse my inclination to get to fifth finger again. Say just one of the freeing aspects of this is my ability to play these arpeggios while staring at what I'm doing, because if too often the mystery in something that's not working lies unseen. Many piano students make that mistake. They get so immersed in the score, the piano teacher sitting beside them can see what they do, and they don't know really what they're doing because they're not sure of what their hands are doing. And so even if you end up playing something from the music, it's important to be able to take full responsibility for what you've chosen to do. It should be a choice, not an accident. Even if it means that your body led you to a good solution and your mind noticed it and said, okay, body, you know what you're doing. That at least is a decision. That the solution you found is a good one. left hand. Here. Settle this quite a bit. It's so startling how the major sneaks in. I need a reminder. Position arpeggio and then the seventh. What am I doing? And then go here. If I'm going to use their suggested fingering, which brings me up here to 4, I have to carry my hand. The alternative would be to go to 3, which is a longer finger, and closer to the thumb. I have the feeling, because I've been just about missing time after time, that's the problem. Now, I'm so used to the 4. I wonder if I'll be able to change it. Maybe it's just a question of awareness. But the 3 does work better for me. Also, being aware makes all the difference. So there's one really rewarding aspect of this particular part of the practice process, and that is, since I'm polishing, since I don't want to leave things undone, I'm forced to look for solutions that really work, where I really understand the passage, I know where I'm going, I've refined the gestural language, I've refined the fingering, and that's very satisfying, even when what precedes the satisfaction is frustration, or at least a sense that I haven't yet found a solution. Because since I know I need a solution, I go looking for it, and then I find it. That's a good thing. For example, I just need a fingering to make things life a little easier. And it happens that it's 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4. This is a crescendo, not an immediate lift. That's a nice fingering. fingerings I've just assumed. I'm going to 2, 2. I'm just going to make them available to me visually. Of something, this fugal area, where either I know it or I don't. Nothing quite as uncomfortable as almost or sort of knowing something, because you feel the frenzy of the energy and you're holding on for dear life. What I want is a nonchalance of attitude that results in as much vigor or intensity or drama or whatever as I need. This is a very intense contrapuntal moment, and it needs to be executed without any of that intensity. In other words, within me I have to have calm, so outside I can represent that intensity. So that's really important. And I certainly remember the feeling, last night, of being able to get through it, but without that sense of ease that I really need. And then there's terribly uncomfortable page turn, alas. So to me at this huge leap. My partner's holding a note, so. Around a bit, but not that much, not as much as inside I might have felt. And my left hand, which jumps around actually quite a lot, has spaces. Here, here, here. G octave, but you have to put it in the right place on the keyboard. Here, mostly I like to stress to myself and to my students, if you're looking for accuracy, approach the keyboard directly. Don't come at it at a slant, or you run the risk of missing it. You this way. Slant, shall we call it? Practice strategy. I'm going to finish getting to the fermata here and then work back over the page turn. I want to know, and this is important if you play music with pages and with page turners and the like, it's really important to know what's at the top of the next page, because that way, no matter how good or how bad the page turning, you're going to feel a sense of confidence about where you're heading. If you have a sense of confidence about where you are, but not about where you're heading, there's effectively a diminuendo in results, which is not a good thing. So that's reasonable. I don't know why. I've got a good hand position here, but I feel uncomfortable. Because I didn't allow the definition that I even have graphically represented with brackets to take hold. In other words, I didn't stress. Now this. That's all the difference. Now this and that. It's amazing. Now this and that. Starting fingerings in the right are very important for me. 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 3, 2, 1. It's so cheerful. And then they enter this fugal material in just in instant mind. Reminds me of those comedy tragedy masks. Reversal caught me. So I want to stress what binds the notes together, not what separates them. The scale is automatic, is bound together. It's idiomatic musical gesture that you would not want to violate the integrity of. So, and then, same thing with this descending scale, then it reverses, then it goes so. And then, so you have to recognize those entities. Find solutions that represent the intact nature of those musical entities. Do I have enough time? No. To really turn the page there, I very much doubt it. Who knows? That's as close as I'm going to get to being a page turner. I've got to get to A. Forgive myself. Notice I have to practice that page turn. Even if I can't make the page turn, I have to know what's there. Before. That's where the reversal occurred. I didn't signal. Now. So there's here. Those are all unique events. Here. It also requires me to shift most of my attention to the left hand. I don't know why. Skips around, but that doesn't mean what's primary in my attention. What's primary in my attention? Whatever needs it. I really can't generalize melody, accompaniment. Certainly jumpier things tend to require more of that, but there's very often just one little thing that bugs you, and you have to be able to pay attention to it to take care of it. So, yeah. One, two, three, four, five, four, but it's not. I'm going to go to one instead. I'm going to turn early. So even though I have more to travel, I like the balance and security of the middle part of my hand. So going from 2 to 1 is not a big deal because my hand is relaxed. Fingering, and it worked. That happens so often to me that I find a simplicity in a gesture, and then I discovered that the fingering is much less relevant than the simple simplicity of knowing where I'm going. So I don't know what I'll end up doing, but it amuses me a little bit. does that feel good compared to what it had been. So I am in polishing mode. It is not fully polished, but it's at the point at which I can start to think about the fine sandpaper. Anyway. To start with. Augmented second, I've already separated out. And here. Come out a little earlier. Because there's no advantage in waiting till the absolute last moment. Now this is still, again, not a thing that's difficult, but cumbersome. Finding all these notes, I need to know where I'm going. Particularly because there are a lot of white notes in the left hand. Remind myself often that when I'm skipping down to a fifth finger, looking at the fifth finger is often a waste of energy. I look to the octave higher, to where my hand would have been had I played something beyond a single fifth finger. It's often more efficient. So I look to this finger rather than to this G. The question then actually, and let's see if I can figure out my vision choreography. I'm looking in the middle of the keyboard. I can feel my right hand was well positioned. Okay, let me do it this way. Well, that was very slow. So I did that with my eyes closed. It didn't accomplish a whole lot, other than I know where those notes are if I take lots of time. I felt I was doing some sequential peaking. Rather well. That was the best, and it's simply because I know where I'm going, more than anything pretty reasonable third fingering. 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, and then over to 3. I'm going to start with 1 and 2, which is what I did before. I'm going to go, instead of 5, 4, 2, which is comfortable, I'm going to deny myself the initial comfort for the longer fingering loop. Like this, which is the second inversion with the black note on the top and the left hand. 2, 3, 5. It's a greater distance than grader 1, but the 1 twists my hand. But I found myself going to 1, and I'm not sure which I prefer. Done with the second finger. So. It's just it's not bad. And I did use second. I'm going to write second. Remember the seventh. There's no time to wonder what chord you're about to play. The seventh. In fact, if I shift my attention to the left hand altogether, that's true visually anyway. Not as decent as it feels. It's been going to 1, 3, 5 because it's easier to grab that. I can always adjust. So I've got to be. I'm going up to C then to B. C, D. That time I went 2, 4, 5. What do you know? Because I was at ease. Same thing I did last time, namely 3, 5 twice. It's different and easier, much easier here with the white notes. Anyway, so maybe I won't. Haven't yet decided. Stick with the exposition, or the first iteration of the ring. Stop, please. Okay, let's see. So we have. That's a good fingering choice. 3, 3. That makes a difference. It makes me shift more easily. Stay. Stay. Okay, let's see. actually stop here because I don't want this session to be interrupted by the cameras running out of space, and I'm not quite sure where we are. Oh. Well, actually, we're fine. I think we have another 20 minutes. So, let me get into it. And I didn't go to third because I was distracted by the right hand, of course. Just as in the first statement, you can see that the right hand's jumping around makes a considerable difference in the ease with which I'm able to execute my left hand. Namely, it doesn't destroy it, just makes it harder. So I need to know my right hand much better. Now, here. I've never played a second version C minor arpeggio before. It's just that every one of them requires fine tuning, or they often require fine tuning. Well, let me go down. Yeah, so I've got to stop thinking or stop pondering my left hand so much. The right hand needs my attention because it jumps around so much. And even though the left hand is busier, it's more continuous, so I have to be able to trust it more. So on. Well, I don't yet trust it enough, and I could probably check the score occasionally, but I have to know to what extent I can divert any of my energy to thinking about the left hand and to what extent it has to be more automatic. Or perhaps said another way, that I use tactile and oral feedback for it, but not visual, and less thought. So that I know that my left hand is doing its job. My right hand wasn't. I need to be able to say to myself, okay, it's non-legato, I just left A flat, but it's right next to A natural. So then I need to orient myself to the D, which does probably need my visual involvement, or could. And then the leap up to the B. Accelerates because it moves from eighth note with the rest to just straight eighth note motion. I cannot anticipate the forte. pure pleasure if I can find my pencil again. Put it in the wrong place. I'll go 2-4, 2-5, and it'll take care of it. So yes. Nachschlag is in parentheses. Again, if I'm going to play this quickly, I like the Nachschlag, then I've got to go 3-2, 3-2, 1-2, and be done with it. Work. I could do 5-4-2-1 and then 5-2. Let's see. I'll use the orthodox. Just put my hand. I made the left hand agree with this 7. It's still C. Beethoven would not have that C pedal. It's really wonderful. Go up with 4th finger on flat. I came down on 3rd. Well, that actually should work. Actually, it should work better. If I go 3 twice. Now, I don't know if this is going to be smart. I've indicated 3rd finger on the C, in spite of the fact that I'm jammed against the E flat thumb and the 2nd finger D. For consistency of fingering, and because then I can move on more easily. So I put up with it. And it's subito pianissimo. One here. So I have to to the C without regard to the E flat. If I go to the C and E flat at the same time, I'm choosing a nasty position. If I just go to the C, then my arm can get me to the E flat. That's the solution. So I'm going to isolate it with a graphical indication. But that really is no good. I'm still going to do 1, 3. I'm just going to toss my hand. Presto. Half step below C. So if I put 4th finger there, it's a little bit easier to count on. Officially, I have to hang on to the right hand thumb. Just a little. I think what I need to do is circle those 2 whole notes. 5 to 1. Also, the A flat is a restart of this descending scale, etc. practice. Well, checking out the notes there. Checking out. Really has to be in piano. So I've got to make sure this fingering works, whatever it may be. I've only indicated second finger on the second, third downbeat. It may work, but I need to get third finger back on E flat. So 3. Octave leaps on white notes. Let's see if I can get